So in this episode, we're going to talk about the language of sex.
We all have different ways of feeling turned on, being aroused, and actually what turns us off. With energetics, they are more likely to be a lot more spiritually focused, I guess. Think tantra, think eye gazing, think full body orgasms without even being touched. Anything is doable if we have the tools to communicate. There is real foundational emotional intimacy, communication and trust, but we're just running into this libido mismatch or sexual. We look for options. Do you want to give it or do you want to receive it?
That's true, yeah. That's something I've recently realised, yeah. But yeah, exactly. It'd be a question, wouldn't it? But on the whole, I would think a hetero guy would want to on the whole. Excuse my French. This is Between the Sheets by MHC, a podcast about sex, intimacy, and relationships. Hello, everyone. It's James from the Men's Health Clinic. Today, I'm going to be speaking to Nic Brewer, who's our in-house sex and intimacy therapist. And we're going to be talking about the 5 erotic blueprints and our love languages. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so in this episode, we're going to talk about the language of sex. I've heard about the 5 love languages and, of course, know about the 5 love languages. But talk to me about the erotic love languages. This is something I don't know anything about.
Yes, well, those 5 love languages have been pretty instrumental in helping couples how to learn how to communicate, how they most feel loved. Now, there's a sexologist, Jaya, came up with a concept called the 5 erotic blueprints. So essentially, we all have different ways of feeling turned on, being aroused, and actually what turns us off. Same way as we like to receive love in certain ways, like I might like to be hugged, you might like to be given a gift. It's the same with sex. We show it and feel it and want it in different ways. So, yeah, I guess today we're going to talk about what those 5 different styles of sex are and why they're important to know.
Intriguing.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the first?
Okay. The first one is the energetic. Okay, so the energetic, think about longing and yearning. Less is more with the energetic.
Really?
Okay, so they are very much, I mean, obviously it's all in the name. They're about the feeling of it, just the anticipation of the kiss. You know, imagining what the kiss is going to be like can almost be more arousing than the actual kiss, okay? So let's just think less is more. Okay,
the energetic, okay.
Yeah, so and each of these blueprints, they have a superpower, of course, but they also will have a shadow side, like anything. You know, you don't have inherently good or bad. So I guess also I want to talk a little bit about both sides of what could be a benefit and what could be a drawback of each of them.
Please do.
Yeah, so with energetics, they are more likely to be a lot more spiritually focused, I guess. Think tantra, think eye gazing, think full body orgasms without even being touched.
Right.
We're talking, very...
So a real mental connection with sex.
Energetic, not mental.
Okay,
Yeah.
energy is called energetic. Energy is... So
So
you're feeling the energy.
correct.
Okay, got it.
Yep. So, yeah, they will tend to, their shadow side is that they don't want to be touched too soon, too much. If they become overstimulated, they can become turned off very quickly. Too much sensation. Okay, think about throwing a pebble in the ocean. It creates those ripples. If you start throwing boulders in there, it's going to just be too much, almost short-circuiting that person.
I see.
Okay, now, I guess I just want to say why it would be important to know our erotic blueprint, because if we're all different, You can see if I'm someone who needs very little stimulation, but I'm with someone who has the opposite, and we'll get into those other blueprints in a minute.
Needs loads.
There's going to be a mismatch in our sexual compatibilities, our libidos. So as we get further into it, you'll see.
I wonder if that's fixable.
I wonder. Yes.
Let's go further into it.
Let's find out. So that's the energetic. Any questions about that, James?
No, that makes sense. So the word energetic, I get the energy part now. Yeah. So what's the second?
The second one is the sensual. Now, this blueprint, again, as the name suggests, it's about the senses. So they're the type of people who they love the candles, they love the
bubble bath, and
yes, anything to do with pleasure and senses, whether it's the food, the taste, the touch. They like the silk sheets. They like the music. They like to take their time to explore the body. Very sensual. Anyone who you hear when they're eating who's like, I love it. Okay, they would probably be a sensual
telltale sign.
Yeah, because they're very much into pleasure. So their superpower really is that they could have sex all day long because it's not per se about the sex. It's about
the experience.
Maybe full body massages for each other. As you said, the bubble baths, having a meal, but all of it is part of the foreplay and the arousal.
You mentioned there's a dark side as well.
Yes.
Will we get into that in a minute, or is that on each part here?
Well, the dark side to the energetic is if that you go in too quick, you will turn them off.
Right.
Because they need less.
Yeah.
The other thing, let me just rewind, with an energetic is they're not the type that will have make-up sex, because if the energy isn't right,
I see,
between us in general, I'm not going to want to come anywhere near you. So forget about make-up sex. I have to feel good in your presence. I have to feel like we've resolved our issues before I want to be having sex again.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's
probably my wife, that one, but I'll tell you at the end of it. She won't come near me if she's upset with me. Got to make her feel great.
Yes. So the shadow side of the sensual is they can tend to get into their head and overthink it. It's almost like this has to be right, or a bit of a perfectionist attitude.
I see.
The pillow's not right.
I'm turned off.
I don't like that song. Or, whatever. I don't like the smell of that candle, or you're not touching me right. They can also have issues around body image because they want to look good while they're feeling good. Yeah. Or even some body shame about, I don't know, the way they smell or the way they taste, because it's all about the senses. Mm-hmm. So they can overthink it too much and get out of the experience. So
would a sensual perhaps be interested in being watched as well? Would that be sensual? Somebody that wants to appear really good while they're having sex, and who would that? We'll perhaps get into that in a little while.
Yeah, probably not so much, but a good way to get a sensual out of their head and back into it is with and again, of course, you need to know that it's kind of consensual and it's an okay thing to do. But a firm slap on the butt is going to bring them back into presence and into their body.
Got it.
Or something,
little interrupt.
Or a firm, let's just even say a really firm touch on their body, because it's going to stop them thinking.
Yeah.
And bring them back. Same as men with their performance anxiety. We want to get them back in their body.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's the sensual
Okay. Then there's sexual.
Then we have the good old sexual.
Yeah.
Now, again, this is where I guess a lot of men fall, again, because of porn. Sexual, as the name suggests, it's about going from 0 to 100 straight away. So that's their superpower. They probably don't need a lot to get turned on. Mm-hmm. It's about genitals. It's about penetration. It's about, they're probably into watching porn. Mm-hmm. It's rawness. It's just sex. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The shadow side of this is that...
Can you be loving and sexual?
Yeah, sure.
But you just, you want to fuck. You don't want to make love. It's that sort of
For the
thing.
most case, yeah. And they're quite simple blueprint. They know what they want, so they can tend to almost sometimes be a bit vanilla because this is we do X, Y,
I do it
and
this
Z.
way.
Yeah. Most of the men in the clinic, especially the older men, I need an erection because I need to penetrate.
Yes.
And I need to ejaculate.
Yes.
So you can see already if we have an energetic with a sexual, we're going to run into some problems pretty fast. And we don't communicate. And why is my penis not working? My wife doesn't come near me. You see how there's so much going on under here. Now, sexuals also view sex as like their daily bread. To them, it's just something they want a lot of frequently, just like water, bread, it's an essential.
Yep.
So their shadow is they can get very frustrated or upset if they're not getting it every day.
Yep.
Like water.
Yep.
They just feel like
I know
they need it.
I know a friend like that,
Yeah, I think we all know friends.
Yeah.
Like that. But then, they can also be accused of not being very adventurous, or they just want to
makes sense.
tick their box. So again, very performance orientated too, which
And then there's kinky.
kinky.
It's a word I've heard before.
So the kinky is an interesting one because with kink, it's all about the taboo. Now, it's not about what society considers taboo because obviously that's subjective, but it's what that person feels is taboo. And if they feel missionary positions taboo, then that's their kink, right?
Yeah.
But it is about...
Surely they need another kinky person to be with, do they?
We'll get on to that in a minute, how compatibility does affect it, because that is part of their shadow side, I guess. They can be too kinky. They can also feel a lot of shame around having their particular kink, worried about having to repress it or not be able to express it to their partner. They can also go down the kinky rabbit hole a bit too far because if they're kind of like the porn watching, if they've developed some kinks and...
We're talking 50 Shades of Grey, aren't we?
Yeah.
The Red Room.
Exactly. But kink can be the psychological or physical. So let's be clear.
Okay.
What we saw in Christian Grey's Red Room was, yes, there was, of course, some psychological kink going on there. That is what control is about. That's a psychological thing.
He was very transparent about it, wasn't he?
Yeah. But hey, who wouldn't want to have sex with a billionaire that looked that good? I mean, I'd go to that Red Room all day long.
Brilliant.
Yeah, but, we have psychological kink. So it's about the power, the sub, the dom, the mind games, the power, just playing with you psychologically to turn you on. Then we have the physical, which is more about the Red Room, the restraints, the physical, the impact play.
Impact play, okay.
Impact play, anything from flogging to whipping to, restraints to needle, blood play, you name it, anything that is physically...
I saw a bit of that yesterday because we're in Amsterdam at the moment, so we had a little walk around the red light district.
Oh, here, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, they're probably the most creative. That's their superpower, the most creative blueprint.
Most creative, yeah.
Yeah, they can make a sex toy out of a fork. They can find new and interesting games and things to do. But the shadow side is they may not... maybe communicate their needs or get consent from their partner because there may be an assumption that they'll be into the kink.
Then there's a problem.
Then we've got a big problem, especially if it's, quite a intense kink. But I can't really imagine, not too many kinky people don't understand consent.
Well, actually, the Diddy thing that's in the news at the moment is quite interesting, isn't it? Because he just was forcing people to get into that environment and no consent, and it can get nasty, can't it?
Yeah. So consent's a big topic. We could do a
whole podcast on it. And then there's the shapeshifter. Talk to me about the shapeshifter.
Yeah, the shapeshifter is they're usually a highly intelligent erotic being. They literally can shift to any of the other blueprints depending on what their partner is. So they can be energetic, they can be sensual. But the trouble, so that is a superpower, that they can be so diverse. They do like a lot of variety. They can please anyone at any time, but you can see where the shadow could come in here, that they actually don't end up getting fed. They're too busy pleasing the other person and maybe making sure what they want, and especially if their partner is only into one thing all the time. These are the people that are likely, and again, this is a massive, broad statement, but they're the ones that are probably likely to cheat or want to have an open relationship, because unless they're really understood and given also what they need at times, it's going to be quite unfulfilling and unsatisfying.
Seems to me that everybody in a relationship needs to go through this exercise, really.
Yeah, which you can do on Jaya's website, or even if you Google it, the Erotic Blueprint Quiz.
Okay.
You can actually take a quiz. There's a free version.
Oh, wow.
That's, it's a very...
Suggest everyone does that.
Yeah. I do send it as a link to a lot of my clients. And if nothing else, obviously there's a self-awareness. Actually, we'll get into that in a minute. James, but I was going to say you can take a free version, which will give you a little bit of a snapshot and a probably that's what you are, or you can do a paid version and get a full, what do you call it?
Yeah, so an in-depth.
In-depth, yeah.
Okay, so that's how you'd find out your erotic blueprint, basically, by doing something like that.
Sure.
Or you would, through sessions, be able to work that out, would you, with somebody? Or probably get a good understanding, good idea.
You tell me, James, even just this brief conversation, now that you know the 5, could you now having a framework?
I was thinking, what did I say? Sexual, I think. And then but shapeshifter could potentially be me as well. So it's interesting, I must say. But so to find out what your erotic blueprint is, that's a good website to go to, is it?
Yeah. And you can have more than one, same as your love languages.
You can have more than one?
You can have more, and that's what the in-depth quiz does. It'll actually give you like a pie graph with a percentage of how much of each of the 5 you are. So you'll see. And there might be a couple that are on par, and then the other 3 are probably on par, something like that. But why this is useful is already, as I explained in the beginning, if you're a sexual and you have an energetic, you're going to run into so many difficulties without... And again, we can play within these framework, but it gives us a good talking
Fascinating.
point. Right?
Yeah.
So then it's like, oh my God, that makes sense. Why when you touch me like that, I actually feel turned off. And it's like,
the light comes on.
Yeah, now I understand that I need to spend an hour on you before we're going to have sex. I may not want to, but at least I know what I'm going to have to do to save this relationship.
Yeah.
Or we're simply not compatible and we need to go our separate ways. That's also, if you...
So you can use it to enrich the relationship, or you can use it to actually realise that you're probably incompatible.
Correct. But again, back to communication. Anything is doable if we have the tools to communicate, and how do we work around it? I mean, maybe
so if the blueprint is out, the yin and yang is out, is that still a relationship that could work?
Again, if there is real foundational emotional intimacy, communication and trust, but we're just running into this libido mismatch or sexual, we look for options. Is it an option to open the relationship if you're a sexual and you need sex every day and I can't give it to you? Is it an option for you to masturbate next to me at night and I can be a part of that? I don't have to actually.
Yeah.
But you need more sex. How do we make those needs?
Yeah.
You see where I'm going?
Yeah.
It's
all about being understanding and getting it out on the table, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So really, this is almost something you need to do at the beginning of your relationship, not sort of 6 months or 2 years later when
Yeah.
when the honeymoon period's worn off.
Well, I do, and I do
Right.
advise everybody.
Do you?
I'm not interested in your favorite color, to be honest. I want to know, how are you going to handle conflict if we get into a fight? I'm interested in, the types of things that you're interested in the bedroom. You know, what turns you on? I'm looking for the deeper stuff from the get-go, because we've all
Very
got our
wise.
drama, we've all got our baggage. It's just a matter of time, not if, but when. So I actually did that on my dating profile. I was asking these types of questions even from day one.
And actually, when it's all sort of friendly and you're still in that sort of new relationship, you got the
Exactly.
time to get it out rather than people go, what do you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Once you get into it 6 months later and
It's all a bit difficult.
Yeah, especially if you've been people pleasing and then suddenly it's like, actually, I want to try this in the bedroom. They're like, what the? You never, ever, why, what? You see, so, you know, my best advice to everyone is just be authentic and honest from the very first date.
Great
You know,
advice.
You're not going to be everybody's cup of tea and they're not going to be yours. Do not pretend.
Yeah.
And that's the mistake we make. We put on our game face, our A-game face. We want to be everything to them. We want to tick all their boxes. And then we wonder 3 months later why you fucking said you love Japanese. Yeah, but I was only saying that because I thought we get into these
understand.
kind of traps. So very important just to be honest. And if they don't like it, then you're not for me. You know, I'm not going to settle or pretend to like something I don't.
Exactly.
Conversely, I don't need to make you like what I want. So we have to have these conversations early on.
Definitely, because the looks wear off and then all of a sudden, you get to avoid the same old, really.
Yeah.
Good. All right. And so you can have more than one erotic blueprint, and relationships can still last and be effective, nice, close relationships, providing you communicate, put everything on the table, and be authentic from the get-go. I think that's the takeaway from this.
So even if you're not in a relationship, even like I give it to guys, that's the thing, whether they're...
It's a great exercise for a single guy, isn't it?
Just to get more awareness. You know, maybe he thinks he's asexual because he's meant to watch porn and act like that. Once he does that and, you know, we talk a bit more, then it becomes clear, actually, he does like to take his time. It's the women that are actually acting more like men these days, they're the ones who want to fuck. Honestly, they're demanding it, and that's another reason for the ED.
Absolutely.
Like, hang on, what about a kiss and
I'm
a
an
cuddle,
old-fashioned
honey?
guy.
Yeah. So I'm seeing a lot of that as well.
I bet you are.
So I think it's a great tool. Even just as a talking point, even if you don't know exactly, it starts to give you something to think about. Could I be a little bit kinkier? Where could I expand my boundaries? Where can I...
Do you find, because obviously you do a lot of guys that are in relationships, you see a lot of guys that are in relationships on your therapy sessions. Single guys, do they take advantage of the sex therapy as well?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. I see all walks of life. Because great sex also has to start with yourself. As I said earlier.
So it's really good of them to do it, wise of them to do that, isn't it? To take advantage of the session and think ahead like that. It's really good, isn't it? Often?
Yeah, and not just for sex. We cover dating tips and what do I think, helping them put a dating profile together.
Right. You help with all that.
All of that. How to communicate, how to ask their wife to, I don't know, would she be interested in anal sex? I teach them how to actually have these conversations that they don't dare. Or if they're going to get a girlfriend, what does that relationship look like? We write relationship visions. What's happening in that relationship vision? Not only the sex, but how do you communicate? What common interests? What values? Getting them ready for the relationship, not just their penis work.
You mentioned a buzzword just there, anal. That seems to be the real fashion, doesn't it, these days? And
I think it's always been in fashion. It's just like everything.
But it's perhaps spoken about more now. How would you How would you get a couple talking about that? Let's say you've got a guy that wants to be exploring that kind of sexual activity, and he's got a partner that's just wouldn't even go there. Do you know what I mean? So what would he do?
Well, first I'd say, do you want to give it or do you want to receive it?
That's true. Yeah, that's something I've recently realised. Yeah, but yeah, exactly. That'd be a question, wouldn't it? But on the whole, I would think a hetero guy would want to on the whole. Excuse my French. Classic. You know what I mean. How would they? So yeah, but it's true because some guys literally they that's happening more and more, isn't it?
Yeah. James, I mean that's the least
for me. Yeah, you don't go where the sun don't shine, but for some guys that works. But I think for guys looking to have that sort of sex with his partner and he's really fearful, what advice and tips would you give him?
Again, I mean that just shows me that they don't have communication in general. You should be able. Well, I don't like the word "should," but just being able to openly express anything, including anal sex, is just another topic. It's what's behind it. Will I be judged? Am I okay to say this? Is usually indicative of the rest of the relationship. If I can't even ask if I can go out with my mates for a beer, I'm not going to be able to ask about anal sex. But a short answer to that is just to set a scene, perhaps like I often encourage couples to start having rituals like once a week or once a fortnight, like a bath night where you might have a bottle of bubbles in the bath and
well lubricated.
Yeah, no, but you're doing foot massages. You make it a nice, safe, intimate place. And yeah, you don't lead straight with that question, but you may say something like,
"Oh, I accidentally touched it."
No, James. It's like, so I've been thinking, honey, I would love to do a little bit more exploring. We've been together 15 years now, and I came across this article, and I've never really thought about it until recently, but what are your views on anal sex? It has to be a very soft, calm, loving way of bringing anything, not just, this is what I would like to do, when can we do it? We have to put a little bit of subtlety into it, and just it's more about having the conversation. There's a lot of apps these days that you can use as your partner, and I think we're going to get into that topic a little bit later on, but there's certain apps where there's fantasies, sort of like a Tinder style, where you swipe left or right. You only play with your partner, but it'll come up with, would you do a strip show for your partner? And you swipe left or right if it's a yes or a no. And they're doing the same. It's a nice subtle
way of doing it.
Yeah.
Without face-to-face convo,
Exactly. And if you're a little bit nervous about having these conversations.
What are those apps for our viewers? I'm sure they'd like to know.
I'll find them for you.
Great.
And I think
perhaps we'll put them in the bio or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
But they range from fairly vanilla right up to your anal sex and group sex. Now, you only get a match with your partner if you both say yes, all right? So you don't see the ones that they want to do that you're not interested, because that could be...
that's clever.
Yeah, so if we're both ticked we're into anal sex, it's going to come up, and then you're already got the talking point. So that's one way
Very
around
good.
it. Yeah. Otherwise, it just becomes a general... You've got to be brave. You've got to be able to say... I was thinking about this. Are you open to it? Pardon the pun. In any way of exploring that, If it's a hard no, you have to respect that. But if there are all sorts of variations on anal play, fingers to toys to full penetration, we don't have to go to the whole.
Yeah, exactly. I think we'll get off the whole one. All right. Yeah. So it's that was a very, very interesting episode, I have to say, and I didn't know I mean, to put it all into context like that, it's just fascinating. It really is. So you must have these enlightening sessions with these guys. I mean, I own a sex whole business, you know what I'm saying? And so I'm learning a lot on this podcast as well. So it must be just tremendous help for the men that come to you. Amazing. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Between the Sheets. Thanks for joining us. If you're enjoying this podcast, give it a like and subscribe so we can keep creating content you'll love. Check out the description below for links to our Facebook and Instagram pages to get more updates about Men's Health Clinic. And if you're experiencing any bedroom health issues, please feel free to book an appointment with us through the booking links provided. If you have questions or want to start your treatment for sexual dysfunctions, reach out to Men's Health Clinic. We offer free online consultation and provide custom treatments. Take care, everyone, and keep the conversation going between the sheets.